All right, let's dive in. In the world of data, not everything is created equal. Today, we're breaking down the two big types that power pretty much every analysis you'll ever do: qualitative and quantitative. Let's get to it.
So think about this. All the data we work with, it's built on a super simple foundation. Some of it just describes things, like the color of a t-shirt or a customer's review. And other data measures things, like the price of that shirt or how many were sold. Getting this core difference down is honestly the first real step to understanding the story your data is trying to tell you.
Before we can even start talking about the cool, big picture stuff like business intelligence, we've got to start small. I mean, really small. With this single, most fundamental building block of all data. We need to talk about attributes.
Now, you've probably heard this one idea called a bunch of different things. Maybe you've heard it called an attribute or a field, a column, maybe even a data point. Look, they all mean the exact same thing, just a single, individual piece of information. So don't let the jargon get you confused. It's all just one simple concept.
Okay, so let's meet the first of our two main characters in this whole data story. This is the data of description, of categories, of context. This is the world of qualitative attributes.
So here's the key thing to get about qualitative data. It describes a quality or a category. Just think of them as labels. You can't add the color blue to the color green and get some meaningful answer, right? And you definitely can't multiply a product description by 2. Their one job is to categorize and describe. That's it.
And when you look at the examples, it just clicks. Gender, city name, the brand of phone you like, these are all just labels. They're like buckets that we put information into, and that's what gives our data context. You can totally count how many people prefer a certain brand, but you can't do math on the brand name itself.
But wait a second, it gets just a little more interesting here. Even inside these descriptive labels, there's a really key distinction we've got to make. Let's see how this unfolds. So on the left, you've got nominal attributes. An easy way to remember this: nominal kind of sounds like name. They're just names or labels, and there's no natural ranking. The brand Apple isn't mathematically greater than Samsung. But on the right, you have ordinal attributes. And you guessed it, ordinal sounds like order. These labels have a built-in sequence. Agree is clearly a step up from neutral, which is a step up from disagree. With these, the order really matters. All right, time to bring our second character onto the stage. This is the data of numbers, of counts, of measurements. Let's welcome the world of quantitative attributes. Now, this is probably what you picture when you hear the word data. These are your numbers, and the big takeaway here is that you can do meaningful math on them. You can subtract one price from another or compare inventory counts to see which one is bigger. It just works.
And yeah, the examples make this crystal clear. An inventory count of, say, 100 items, a price of $19.99, a temperature of 25 degrees, these are all hard numbers. They represent a quantity of something.
But just like before, there's a super critical distinction here, and it all boils down to the number 0. On one side, you have interval attributes, like temperature in Celsius. Sure, there's a 0, but it's kind of arbitrary. 0 degrees Celsius doesn't mean there's no heat. It's just a point on a scale. But on the other side, ratio attributes have a true 0. 0 kilograms means literally no weight. And that's why you can say that 10 kilograms is truly twice as heavy as 5 kilograms. But you can't say 20 degrees Celsius is twice as hot as 10 degrees. That true 0 changes everything.
Okay, so we've met the players: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Now, let's talk about the rules of the game. What can you actually do with each of these types of data?
See, the type of attribute you're working with isn't just some academic label for a pop quiz. It literally dictates the rules of your analysis. It tells you which mathematical tools you're even allowed to pick up and use to find insights.
So let's build this up, rule by rule. First, at the very bottom, we have Rule 1, distinctiveness. This is the most basic property, and every single data type has it. It just means we can tell if two things are different. Blue is not red. 10 is not 20. Simple enough, right?
Next up is order, and this is where it gets interesting, because this is where we say goodbye to our nominal data. You can't say blue is greater than red. But for everything else, ordinal, interval, and ratio, you can absolutely put them in a meaningful sequence. A large t-shirt is bigger than a small one. 30 degrees is definitely warmer than 20.
Okay, now we get to additiveness, and the rules get even stricter. Whoops, there goes our ordinal data. You can't subtract neutral from agree and get a number that means anything. But you can say the difference between 30 degrees and 20 degrees is exactly 10 degrees. This is for the truly numeric data types.
And finally, we've reached the top of the mountain, the most exclusive club of all, multiplicativeness. This property belongs only to ratio data. And why? Because of that true zero we keep talking about. An inventory of 20 units is truly twice as much as 10 units. A price of $50 is exactly half of $100. This is the only place you can make those powerful ratio comparisons.
So, we've got all these rules, all these categories, but why does any of this actually matter in the real world? Well, it matters because this stuff is the absolute foundation of business intelligence.
Look, these rules aren't just abstract theory for a textbook. They directly control how we structure our data to answer real business questions. They're literally the building blocks we use to create things that you might have heard of called dimensions and facts.
So, dimensions. Think of these as the who, what, when, and where of your data story. And what are they built from? Yep, our old friend qualitative data. Things like product name, customer city, and calendar date. These are the labels and categories that give our numbers context.
And then you have the facts. These are the how much and how many. They are the core measurements, the things you really want to analyze. And they are built from, you guessed it, quantitative data. Things like sales amount or inventory count. These are the numbers you're actually measuring.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. One type of data isn't better than the other. They're just two sides of the same coin. Qualitative data gives you the context. It answers what are we looking at. And quantitative data provides the measurement. It answers how is it doing. You absolutely, positively need both to tell the full story.
So, understanding the difference between describing and measuring, it isn't just data theory. It's like learning the grammar of data storytelling. It's the key to turning all those raw numbers into real, actual intelligence. So the only question left is, now that you know the rules, what story will you tell? Thanks for tuning in.